Diego.
Diego. I like the sign though, man.
I think the signatures are bogus.
Did we sign the sign?
Absolutely. The bear.
Yeah, there I am.
Cup.
We signed a lot of shit that day.
Woo, the bear and the cup.
Shit.
Both D's. Hey, Dan, you remember that lady was going to throw away this sign? And I said, oh, absolutely not. Let me have it. Because it used to be some other, I think the Popular or something. And then they just flipped it over and they put the lettering on it. And as soon as we walked in and I saw it on that easel, I said, I already know what I'm going to do with that sign. I'm going to ask for it. I'm going to get my two favorite authors to sign it.
It was the UTEP bookstore, right?
Yes.
That was a good signing. I remember that one. They were nice over there.
They were good to us.
They were better than the bookstore, right?
Bookstore did it.
You guys had an odor. You had some kind of an odor problem, I've heard.
Well, no, it's the manager. We worked it out.
No, actually, Dan, I think what Doug's thinking is about Barnes and Noble, but this was a bookstore at UTEP.
They were great. The Barnes and Noble, we were hoping would give Coach a little money.
Right.
And they were not. So then we took all our books signings to the Saddle Blanket Shop.
Correct. And everyone was allowed there. You didn't have to be a VIP.
Saddle Blanket Shop? No, we're taking all comers. Come as you are. All right, what are we doing here? What is this?
Well, it's the Rebound Podcast, and Beto is the guest host this week, and you're the guest. And we're supposed to be talking about all things Coach Haskins that the average bear has never heard. Average bear, how's that, Beto?
He's doing a legacy thing, and it's pretty cool. He's been bringing out a lot of old miners. Fred Reynolds was just on Sunday. Nice. Nolan Richardson's coming on this week. I think Doug's doing a good job. He's keeping the coach's legacy alive. And
love it.
You know, the anniversary is coming up September 7th, so we're actually going to do a special show, Doug and I. And I'm going to share some stories. It's called Chasing Clouds, because that's what, remember that, Dan, that's what we used to do. When we jump in the truck, he'd say, what do you want to do? And we look at each other and we go, let's chase clouds.
Yep.
Dan knows all about driving 4 hours for a hamburger.
Yeah.
So are we already taping or are we not taping?
We are taping.
Okay, we are taping. I don't know.
But it's going to be edited, so you can say whatever you want.
Yeah. Yeah, he would, he didn't have a whole lot going on. And he just liked driving around slow. Yeah. Wasn't getting anywhere fast. So he'd say there's a hamburger over in New Mexico somewhere. And next thing you know, you're driving to Alamogordo to have a hamburger that's supposed to be the best hamburger. It would be pretty good. I don't know if it was worth 4 hours.
Where would he go, Beto?
Well, we went to a couple of places. We went to Del City, to the sheep herders.
Great bars at sheep herders.
Yeah, we went to Columbus, New Mexico. We went to Ruidoso, New Mexico. The furthest we ever went was Las Vegas.
For the owl? For the owl?
We didn't make it to the owl. That's on the way up 25 north headed to Albuquerque. But Dan knows all about going 8-hour round trip for a hamburger.
Yep. I went to Lubbock with him. Stayed over there. Benjamin, his little town where he started his coaching, 253 people. Right. We pulled into town. It said 256. He says, "Oh, there's been a population explosion." Showed us the place. He made Mary Haskins move to Benjamin, Texas, 253. Nothing to do, so he could coach girls basketball and 6-man football. He didn't know the rules of 6-man football, so he got in trouble. But they pull into the town. I mean, you can imagine Mary, she's a nice person, trying to put a good spin on this, like this is not exactly, she dated T. Boone Pickens in college. Right? Yeah. So she could have had a lot. She got Coach Haskins. But they pull into this town and he goes, oh, this is going to be great. This is great. They find the house that they got rented and it's all overgrown and not much of a house. And they're walking up the front steps and there's a rattlesnake on the front step, coiled up, looking at them. So that's a tough one for a newlywed to try to get through. So, he was there. He coached 6-man football. And in 6-man football, you get, it's easy to run 2 yards, right? So you get only 1 point if after a touchdown, you get 1 point if you run the ball in, and you get 2 if you kick it. So he didn't know the rules. The first game he ever coached, the other team came down, they had a kicker. So they kick it, and it goes to, and the scoreboard goes to 8. And Haskins starts screaming at the refs about how that's cheating. They're cheating him. Says dumbasses is only 1 point for an extra point, and they I can't remember the exact language, but they're ready to throw him out, and because he didn't understand the rules. So he thought that I probably should have read up on the rules before agreeing to coach 6-man football. But yeah, we went to Benjamin. That was a little town. That's a long drive. That's kind of near Lubbock. I think we actually were in Lubbock and then drove from there. I don't know. All over West Texas, though. Beautiful area.
I kind of look back then, and I think at the end he wanted me to take on the Headley, Dumas, and Benjamin. And looking back, I think he wanted one more ride down the Glory Road, because I didn't understand why he kept insisting that I take him out there. And, his health at the end was declining. So, but that's the only regret I honestly have with that man, that I didn't take him on his final journey out there, because that's what he wanted. He said, hey, bud, can you run me out? I said, absolutely. And it never came to fruition. And that's the only regret that I have.
Well, he definitely had a connection to that, because, I think a lot of people, I don't know, your first job out of college, we all remember it, and maybe you have some kind of remembrance of it, but I don't know that it's like so important to you. But for whatever reason, it was to him.
It was.
I'm looking. Headley is 7 hours and 49-minute drive, El Paso. So, run me up there.
Hey, Dad, you know what he used to tell me? Hey, bud, can you get free for 4 days? Yeah, I guess that was the beauty of being an owner of a business, because I could get away with that. But otherwise, I think it still would have been, hey, can you put 4 days aside? Where are we going? What does it matter, Beto? What does it matter? And those were some of the 4 best days that I've ever imagined. And they turned into adventures, epic adventures. And I don't know, Dan, you know all about getting in that heat whole court in that truck, and just a regular day would turn into something fantastic or thrilling or out of this world. But just being in that cab with that man I think it was a privilege and an honor.
How did it come to be, Beto, that you were in that cab?
Yeah, my next door neighbor, Mr. Greg Ramsey, he was great friends with Coach Haskins way back. They've known each other. They used to play golf all the time, and they were the ones that had the poker games with Lee Chagra, Doyle Brunson, Lee Trevino, right next door to my house. And then I knew Mr. Ramsey, knew him. And then one day I said, Mr. Ramsey, would you do me a favor? I'm a fan of the man. Could you get this shirt signed for me? And it's kind of close like what Dan's wearing. When they went back to that Texas Western, a throwback, and he signed it for me. And he put to Beto like that. And I was like, oh, thank you, Mr. Ramsey. I still have it. And that's from that moment when I walked up to him at Rosas. And then I said, hey, Coach, I just want to thank you for signing that shirt for me. And he goes, what shirt? I said, oh, Greg Ramsey. And he goes, are you Beto? I said, I am. And he slid over the Gerber jar. And that's how, it just from that moment, it was like fast and furious friends. I don't know, it never ended to, well, literally till his last breath. But it was actually because of my neighbor, Mr. Ramsey. And his son, Chip Ramsey, Coach came to my house one time and he honked outside like he always did. And then I'd get in and we just drive next door. Like Cheech and Chong, remember when he comes around, he just goes around the block. I mean, across the street. He gets in the car just to go across the street. That's what we did. But that day was so profound because Mr. Ramsey comes out of his breezeway and he tells him, what do you want, Haskins? And he goes like this, what are you doing? And he goes like this, nothing. He goes, what do you got with you? He goes, Beto. He goes, oh, shit, double trouble. Come on in. And Coach says, I want to give you this, Greg. And Mr. Ramsey looks at it. It's a Western Union telegraph sent March 18th, my birthday, 1966, which I would have been one. And it was a Western Union telegraph to Coach from Chip Ramsey, wishing him best of luck in the national championship game.
Which was what, March 19th, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And they both, I sat there like, because he broke down. I mean, his son died of leukemia. He was an All-American golfer. And I don't know, it was a beautiful moment, but I saw both of them tear up. And I just was like, whoa. And that was the second time I saw the Bear tear up. So that's how I met him, because of my wonderful neighbor who unfortunately passed away, Mr. Ramsey. But that's how we became great friends.
And Dan, how'd you get pulled into the mix?
Yeah, I'll say this: the last X number of years of his life, no one was as tighter than Coach than Beto. Beto was there all the time, and he was. They had a great friendship and a lot of fun. Those two, they were. It was like a buddy movie, you know, one of those things. Yeah. Two detectives. I don't know what you guys are looking for, but they're funny as hell together. I'll tell you that. So I was covering college basketball, and I met Tim Floyd up in Iowa State, and it was a really, really cold day, like 15 below zero kind of thing. And we went to lunch, and he was telling me some stories about in Ames, Iowa. We went to lunch somewhere, and he's telling me stories about his days with Haskins and all these Haskins stories and all these just ridiculous, you know, pool hustling and all the different stuff they do on the road. And we're driving back to the Hilton Coliseum where their offices were. And we pull up, and he's telling me a couple stories, and I'm loving them. And then he goes, pull up, and it's so cold. He goes, I don't want to get out of the car. It's warm. Let's just drive around for a little while. So Tim and I drove around, and he told me about 10 more stories. And he goes, you got to go see this guy. And I knew the story of 66, but I didn't know maybe that depth of who Don Haskins was, other than just the thumbnail. Oh, he was the guy that you know had the first all African American starting lineup, that type of thing. So when you hear all the other stuff, there's two Don Haskins, right? There's the man, and then there's what he did, and they play into each other. But it was different. So I came to El Paso, and there weren't a whole lot of media coming to see him then, and I to come see him, and Tim was going to put in a good word because he says you have to get in the truck. You're not going to get any good interview without. Although actually we met up at the Holiday Inn off of I-10. Pretty sure it was a Holiday Inn, and we met a couple days for breakfast. He gave me all his stories, or a lot of stories, and so that's how I wrote the story. And then after we retired, he I don't know, we were working on some stuff. Should we do a book, or it was a movie? Trying to get the movie project going. And then he said, come down and visit me. Why don't you come down and visit me? And I think I said, like, Beto, to do what? He goes, why would it matter? So I said, all right, what the hell? This guy's pretty funny. So I came down, and then, we just started hanging around, and we worked on the book together, a million different projects. And I would come down any chance I could for a day or two and just be around the guy. He was something else.
Beto, you remember when these two guys got together?
Absolutely. And then to add to that, yes, me and Coach had a lot of fun. It was amazing. I mean, to this day, I could some of the best days and most exciting times of my life were with that man. But
Beto, you need to Beto, turn your volume up.
My volume?
Yeah.
Okay, let me see.
Try your technology.
Let me just get closer.
Maybe.
Because I had it at full volume.
Okay, that's better.
Okay, but when Dan joined us, we became the three amigos because I had a blast with those two to this day. And even about, what was it, a week or two ago when I talked to Dan, I was coming back from Albuquerque, and I had to pull over on I-25 in the pouring rain because my stomach, I couldn't, even Allie, when his daughter got in the truck, we were still laughing. I think she thought we were insane. But I always had a wonderful time with Dan and Coach. I met wonderful people because of Coach, and Dan is one of them. I mean, to this day, he's one of my dearest friends.
Yeah, same.
I love him. It's a brotherhood me and Dan have.
Yeah, I was really lucky, really fortunate. I met a lot of great people through Don Haskins, and none I care more about than Beto. So it's been cool. We were laughing the other day. We'll still, there's text, you get a text message, a random text message of some phrase or some inside joke. It's pretty funny. The guy was a character. I mean, he obviously was the civil rights hero and all that, but deep down, he was just this character who just didn't really, he was a very simple man and a complicated one at the same time. But sort of that's how you do what he did. But when he was in retirement, he was just having a good time. I mean, he was a retiree who didn't golf. I didn't really hunt much anymore. He didn't go anywhere. He'd go to the Final Four for one day to sell his Final Four tickets, make some money. I think he went to Vegas with you. I mean, he just basically hung out in El Paso. That was his retirement. He didn't go anywhere. So just drove around his truck. That was it.
He was teaching me how to call coyotes. And then we'd stop at Rosa's and knock back a couple of Coca-Colas. And then he'd always say, hey, bud, put on 114, which was Marty Robbins, El Paso, right? I mean, that was a staple. He had to. And then I told him, and then I put in a song, it was 124, which is the Rolling Stones Happy. And then he says, who's that? And I was like, Coach, you were alive in that era. You never heard of the Rolling Stones? No.
No. Like, how much of it was just this act? I mean, it would be like decades. Yeah. How the hell do you never heard of the Rolling Stones?
Exactly. And then at the end,
he would never admit he'd never know who the Rolling Stones were.
And at the end, he'd say, "Here, put some money in the jukebox, 114," and I'd be walking. I said, I know, and then he goes, and 124, and I was like, nah. So I turned them on to the Stones supposedly and the Doors, and I was like, "Where's your era?" You know?
Oh, his era was Merle Haggard was modern music to that guy. Talking to Don Haskins was like talking to someone a whole generation past his. He was like out of the 1800s. Born in 1930. I think he was 30 something. But he grew up in the Dust Bowl Depression. Like the worst part, like anyone grew up in the Depression, right? That's not good. And then you grow up in Dust Bowl, Oklahoma. That's the worst of the worst. And the guy I just don't, he just wasn't really built for modern life. Remember him like fumbling with that cell phone he finally got? Well, because he get calls all day long. When you drive around the truck, that's the thing. All the people that call in are amazing. So you listen in on all these crazy conversations he ends up having. But man, I mean, he barely knew how to turn that phone on.
Yeah, the people that would call on that phone, Dan, you would just sit there in awe, like, amazing. People don't believe the conversations that he'd have with these people, from the president of the United States to Dean Smith to Bobby Knight. It didn't matter.
Some guy he played cards with in Bartlesville, Oklahoma in 1956. I mean, those stories would be even better. Yeah, you never knew. I was there. The White House called one day, and George Bush was coming to El Paso for something, and they wanted to see if he would have breakfast with George Bush. I think he was president. Maybe he was governor. I don't know. Whatever it was at the time, he was big. I think he was president, though.
He's the president.
Yeah, I think he was president. And he said, "No, I ain't doing that." And I was like, "What the hell are you doing tomorrow morning? Because otherwise you're going to have breakfast with me." And he's like, I don't want to get political. I can't do that.
Well, so he didn't up, Dan.
So he didn't do it?
No,
he
wouldn't do it.
Wow.
He said, "Nah, I'm too busy." But
I'll tell you another one.
Most certainly was not.
One time we were out in the cattle pens out on Santa Teresa. We were about to cross south of the border. And then the phone rings. So no, we're driving on that Pan American Highway, and then he veers off the road all of a sudden at the blistering 30 miles an hour. And then we hit the dirt, and then he goes, "All right, let's see what I taught you. Pull it out." And so I get the whistle, and I start calling the coyotes, and he's like, "Oh, no. It sounds just like you did." "No, it doesn't. Not yet." God damn it. And then the phone rings, and his game, he used to love to, he knew everybody's number. He didn't rely on a contact list. Well, he didn't even know how to access the contact list, but if a number came in, 91947, oh, that's Floyd. Oh, that's Dean Smith. Oh, but this one was 000000000. And he goes, "I don't know." I answered, and I said, "Hello, Don Haskins?" I said, "No, just a minute." I said, "Coach, it's for you." "Well, who is it?" "I don't know." "Ask."
He's sitting right next to him.
Who's it? Who is this? "Oh, it's Catherine Wright." Catherine Wright. "Who's Catherine Wright?" "You're right. Get the phone. Ask her." "Catherine, I'm calling from the White House." And I said, "Whoa." I said, "Coach, she's calling from the White House." "What?" Here's the phone." "Hello. Hold on. The president of what?" And I'm like, geez, I know she told me she's from the White House. And then all of a sudden, George Bush comes on the phone and he says, "Yes, this is Don Haskins." And he goes, "Oh, that president." And I was like, God, this guy. And he says, No, I don't get out too much anymore. No, I'm just sticking around here. I'm with my friend Beto. We're going to call coyotes." "Oh, no, I appreciate it. Why don't you call Mother at home?" No, I'm not interested. But if you're ever down here, come on down. I'll get you a beer." And he goes, "Here's Beto." And I was like, hello? And then he says, Bertas? Yes. And he goes, okay. And then Catherine Wright comes back on and she's like, okay, Mr. Bush has to leave, but we will call Mrs. Haskins at home. And I was like, okay, thank you. And I was like, what's going on? Who's that? Well, this was when all that was starting up on the dinner and a movie at the White House. This was the very first kind of call that started that ball rolling.
Right.
But we're in the middle, and he told him, no, he actually said something. I guess I could say it. He said, when I'm talking to Catherine Wright, he says, oh, look over here, Beto. That SOB was right here. This is some fresh coyote shit over here. And I was like, all right, coach. Okay. So she's hearing all this, but that's the kind of character
he didn't go. He didn't go to the White House, right?
No, he didn't go.
Yeah, he didn't go. He didn't go to his movie premiere. He didn't
Well, then
do
we
anything.
made the movie premiere because we were coming back from
well, no, not in the one in Hollywood, though.
Not the one in Hollywood, but the
one in Hollywood. He wouldn't go to that. He wouldn't go to the dinner and the movie at the White House.
Right.
He went to the one in El Paso.
Yes,
barely.
Cinemark West.
And he showed up late.
We were late, and Mrs. Haskins kept calling me, and I was like, when is this? He never told me there was a movie premiere going on. And then we get there 2 hours late, and then he wants to park in the back and let everybody take off. And I said, they're not going to take off. They're waiting for you for the movie. So we finally go in. He sees the movie. They give him a standing ovation. And the first thing he tells me is, get me out of here. Get me out of here. Let's go out to Roses.
He's shy. He was shy. That was his thing.
He didn't. You know, you brought something up real interesting, Dan. Remember when you said he was from the Dust Bowl? He had told me, Beto, have you ever seen The Grapes of Wrath? I said, I read the book. And he goes, that was my life. That was our life. And I think he was such a wonderful person because he never forgot where he came from. He never forgot where he came from. He loved common folk because Coach was common. He didn't want none of that attention. He was happy with just common people like me and anybody at Rosa, anybody. He didn't want to be in the country clubs. None of that stuff appealed to him.
No, he could have, obviously he could have eaten steak dinners and all. We never went to a fancy restaurant all the time I ever went down there.
No, absolutely
never.
Not.
I mean, the fanciest place was what's that place? Not the Sheep Herders. What's the Cattlemen's?
Yeah.
Cattlemen's on the west side. Used to have
that was the
what is that place called? That was about the fanciest restaurant I ever seen with him.
Yeah, it was the old K-Boss, but it turned into the Rancher's Grill.
Rancher's Grill, that's it, not Cattlemen's. Rancher's Grill. No, he loved going to Del City. Yeah, he liked just meeting regular people. People leave him alone. He just liked sitting there talking.
Well, when Evander Holyfield came into town, Lester Bedford called me and he said, I hear you can set up a meeting with Coach for lunch. I said, yeah, we eat lunch every day. He says, well, we'd like to join you. I said, you're more than welcome to join us. Evander Holyfield wants to meet Coach. He's a big fan. And I was like, oh, Holyfield. He goes, yeah, he's fighting in 2 weeks at the Don Haskins Center, but he's here for a media and he'd like to meet Coach and take him out to dinner. I go, he don't do dinner, but lunch would be good. He goes, you pick the place, and he picked the Rancher's Grill.
That's it. That's his big spot. That was it.
Fantastic.
Now, in fairness, the Rancher's Grill was damn good. Yeah, it was a good place. But yeah, no, he's one of a kind. Big tips to the waitresses. Like he would we'd buy people a round of beers or whatever all the time. He's kind of generous with that, but it was cheap. Amazing all the little lessons that you learned from him. He was something else. Very, very unique guy. Really great man.
Salt of the earth. I always thought that I don't know. His when he told me to go to the White House in place of him. I said, Coach, I don't even own a suit. And he goes, that makes two of us. And I always cracked up. I did have a suit, but it's the funeral suit, right?
I thought they might get him to I knew he was never going to this movie premiere. People were trying to get me to help get him to there. And the one in Hollywood. And I was just like, there's just no way. I thought he might do the White House because it's the White House, but he would have to have the private, had to be real easy. But I was like, he ain't getting this guy into Hollywood.
That was at Man's Chinese Theater. And there was a girl that wanted to meet him so bad that she even offered to fly him in her jet. Alicia Keys had a crush on him. Remember she did the soundtrack?
Yeah.
And she fell in love with the story. And then she called me and asked me if I was like, Alicia Keys. But Coach, he said, I'm not going to go to I already went. I said, oh, that's the one at the cinema. And they made that one special for you because they knew you weren't going to make the one up in Hollywood. But the people that were remember Josh? Josh was trying to talk him into going.
Everybody.
Salma.
Yeah.
Salma was his girlfriend at the time.
Oh, yeah. Salma Hayek.
And they'd be up on Rim Road.
Selma might have gotten him to go.
Yes,
if Selma had asked enough times, he might have gone. Josh, no shot. He wasn't doing anything for Josh. Selma, though, no, I'm only kidding. He wasn't doing it. I remember people asking me. I was like, "There's no shot. You had no shot. We ain't going to Hollywood."
Doug, there was a call that I fielded for him, of course, and he said, I answered the phone, and she goes, Don? I said, no, hang on. And I gave him the phone, and he goes, oh, hi. Oh, not much. Just riding here with Carlos. He comes out in Desperate Hookers. And the show is called Desperate Housewives, not Desperate Hookers. But there was that Eva Longoria's husband on that show.
Looked just like Beto.
Yeah, and I even was one time I was in Newport Beach, California with my family and my cousin, and there was people asking me for autographs. They thought that I was that guy, and I said, no, I'm not that guy. I'm from Texas. And they said, yeah. Well, I didn't know the guy's from San Antonio. So it became and then from now on, he called me Carlos. He was either Crowfoot
That's right.
Carlos. So he said, I'm here with Carlos. And then Solomon says, who? And he says, Carlos from Desperate Hookers. What is that? And then I said, Coach, it's Desperate Housewives. Oh, Desperate Housewives. But what she was saying was she wanted Coach to visit her in Santa Fe because she had a big ranch at the time. This is before she married that French billionaire. But she had a beautiful compound. And she said, I'd love for you to come visit. And I was like, and he goes, oh, Beto. He's over there thinking he's going to drive me up there. And I was like, well, ain't that? And he says, oh, hell no, Beto. But she invited him to his ranch in Santa Fe. She called him to invite him. But this is at kind of toward the end where he wasn't comfortable in walking distances anymore. And he grabbed the rail of the truck, the bed, to walk around. And he didn't want to use the walker. Remember, Dan? He didn't want to use his walker.
No, he didn't like that walker. Yeah, let's make sure it's clear this was a platonic invitation. Man it was a good 70, I don't know what at that point, 80 or something. But still.
He was 76.
Yeah, he wasn't, yeah. But it was pretty funny.
But I mean, for Salma,
but he wouldn't change his personality no matter who called. That was the thing. And you were telling this story too about how he remember all the phone numbers, where he'd be like, "Well, I recruited this kid, and he lived in Chicago, 12867 36th Avenue, right? He'd know the address, right? But then if there was some story that he didn't want to remember, you'd be like, well, Nolan Richardson says that you once stopped practice. I don't recall. You don't forget anything, but you can't remember this.
Numbers were amazing. He wouldn't forget your number.
Trying to write a book with him, right? So I had to write his autobiography. So I go, okay, we got to get all these stories down. And so he'd come pick me. All right, we'll work tomorrow. He wasn't really a good worker at that point. So he picked me up. I'm like, all right, let's get the tape recorder going. All of a sudden, there'd be a phone call, another one. Let's go get some breakfast. Then, all right, after breakfast, try to get a little work done. And there's a phone call. He'd tell about half a story. It wouldn't even really make any sense. Next thing you know, we're getting lunch and a couple beers, and that was it for the day. He got nothing done. So he didn't like telling stories about himself because it sounded, like he was bragging. I don't want no bragging in the thing. He goes, I don't want the word I to appear in this book. I go, it's an autobiography. Okay, it's not a biography. It's your story. How the hell am I supposed to write an autobiography without the word I in it? And he goes, well, you're the damn genius writer. So then I call around and get these stories because he's not telling me anything. So I call like his college buddy, Earl Estep, or what was it, Earl Estep? Is that it? This guy over in Austin. I call these buddies. They tell me these stories. So I go, all right, well, Earl told me this, or this old teammate told me that. Whoa, those guys aren't telling it. That's not true. And I'm like, all right, well, what happened? He's, I'm not talking about that. I'm like, how can I be getting a no comment on an autobiography? You do know that the only way you get paid for this book is if I turn something in. And you're not telling me any stories. This is not 60 Minutes. This is not investigative. This is not the New York Times trying to crack the case. We're getting paid for you to tell your stories.
Oh, man. But ain't that what formed that beautiful bond between you and that man?
It was a riot. It was fun.
Wasn't anything simple or outrageous? Wasn't that at the end of the day, the climax of the day? Because it was just a simple ride up the street was an adventure. I mean, just a simple ride that I've taken the same route a million times. With him, it was an adventure. Just get to the stop sign. That's what it was. That's what it is. That's what I remember to this day. He used to pick up my son at preschool, and they would be like, huh? He would come to his birthday parties because he didn't want to go to the Coronado Country Club when they had this big affair for him. My brother was in the backyard. He goes, I don't know, man, but I thought I saw the bear just walk across the lawn. And I said, I don't think so. And then my mom would come in with him hand in hand and say, oh, mijo, Coach is here. And I was like, Coach? And he hands a 6-year-old a $100 bill for his birthday because he didn't have time to stop and get him a gift. And then he goes, and don't give this to your father. And I was like, Coach, he's 6. $100 bill. Then Mr. Ramsey, the neighbor, would give him a check for $100. And I was like, he's 6.
Diego was rolling in it.
He was amazing. Doug.
Yeah.
It's your show.
No, you're the guest host and Dan is the guest. Y'all are doing fine. I don't know any of this stuff.
Okay. Well, I'm looking at you in the center. I go, this is your show, right?
And you're the guest host.
Well, thank you, man.
So go ahead. There's no time constraints or anything else.
I'd be trying to get some work done on something, and then he'd get on his phone, he'd get bored, and then he'd call like Rose's Cafe, Cantina or whatever, and say, can you get my bottle out? He's basically his way of announcing the day of work was over. We're driving to Rose's and he wanted to prep like the 20 seconds it would take because you could leave a bottle there, right? You had to leave it on the side or something. Yeah. Or he'd call some bar and be like, fix me a Scotch and soda. I don't know what he would drink. What would he drink? He was drinking scotch.
Scotch and soda.
Scotch and soda. And like he'd call his drink in and then we'd drive there. So we'd be waiting for him. I'm like, all right, day's done. We're not getting anything done.
It's amazing. I'm not calling in for food.
No. Make sure that's because a fancy scotch and soda takes all of like 11 seconds to make.
And then when he'd slide that over, he'd put the tequila, Doug, in a Gerber jar, a baby jar. And then he'd do that old Western where
Yeah.
And then you're supposed to catch it. And I was always at the end of the bar, and he'd slide it to me, and I go, and he'd go, it's pretty good, pretty good. And then I slide it back to him, and it was empty, and he'd go, Jesus Christ.
You'd ask him to put Gunsmoke on the TV and just sit there.
Or a Yankees game. That's it.
Cowboys. He'd watch the Cowboys.
Well, he only wanted me to watch Gunsmoke, or he'd come to watch the Yankee game because that was his team. I don't know if I told you, Doug, but Coach was from Enid, Oklahoma, right?
Right.
And Jerry, correct? Dan, Jerry Haskins was his brother, the younger brother. He struck out Mickey Mantle 2 times in a game in high school.
Yeah, you told me about that.
I mean, how many people can say they struck out Mickey Mantle twice in a game?
Yeah.
Well, Jerry Haskins did. And then he became an All-American at, I think, Oklahoma, right there?
He went to OU, yeah. Don went to Oklahoma State, Oklahoma A&M then, but Jerry went to OU. He's a hell of a ball player.
Hell of a ball player. And Coach said, oh, he was a much better athlete than I was. He was natural. I had to work at it. I was like, but he said, Jerry, he was real proud of his brother. And apparently he was real sharp because he had like 19 inventions and patents.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he was in the Marines at the time. So the USMC claimed all his inventions. But Coach told me he invented a bolt for the action on the rifle. And I was like, wow. He said that he could do things with nothing. Kind of like MacGyver-ish, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he loved Jerry. I mean, I don't know. It's funny because, the book Glory Road that we wrote, only about 20% of the book actually talks about like the 1966 team because he wouldn't tell any stories and he disputed everyone else's stories. So the rest of the book is just him, I don't know what, messing around, coaching girls basketball. We had more stuff on that than the Final Four. It's a pretty funny book. I know this sounds horribly egotistical, but it was his stories, not mine. But I came across the book. I mean, we wrote it in, almost 20 years ago. And about like 6-7 years ago, I had one and I read it again and I was laughing so hard at some of the stories in there. They really are great stories. He's got some classics.
When I was traveling around the country a lot, one of the few things I was in my bag, you know what it was? Glory Road.
Yeah.
Because whenever I was down and out, I mean, when you're at a hotel night after night,
you're lonely, man. Lonely.
Across the nation, and I'd pick up Glory Road, and it never failed. I was always rolling, man.
Yeah, he's cool hustling, and
I could see him telling you. I can feel you interpreting that story. So you were both with me, honestly. Always with me in my bag. I'd always pull out the Glory Road. When I was down, I'd pull it out. Or I'd rewind some story he told me about shooting snooker in Artesia, New Mexico, and leaving with 6 sets of car keys. And then he felt bad. He went in there and gave a guy back his car because he needed to go work and earn for his family. And I mean, those are the stories that just blew me away. He had
a golf game once against Abe Lemons. And the stake of the bet was if Haskins won, Abe would bring the University of Texas to El Paso to play a game. That was the stakes of the bet. Now, Abe ended up he wouldn't pay out. I don't know what happened, but Texas never played in I don't believe they ever played at UTEP. But that was like they're literally having a golf game over basketball. Abe Lemon's pretty funny too. It's a great story about Abe Lemons. He grew up in Oklahoma, dirt poor too, and his actual name was A.E. Lemons. And the A and the E didn't stand for anything. So he put a B in there and named himself Abe. And he used to say, I grew up so poor I couldn't afford a name.
Which was actually true, right? He said that. He
did say that. A.E. Lemons. I was so poor I couldn't afford a name. My mom couldn't afford a name. So that's poor. That's pretty poor.
You know, when you said that right now, it's ironic that the Longhorns came to Texas September 6th. He passed away the next morning, right before noon. And you had just called me from Cleveland. You were watching the Cleveland Browns. You were reporting that game.
Yeah.
You called me from Cleveland and said, man, your Cowboys are looking pretty good. What's the old man have to say? And I said, you know, Dan, he hasn't called me today.
Yeah.
And within
I remember that
minutes, I told
Cleveland played a late game. They played like a later game.
Well, the September 6th, night before, the last words that coach told, I don't remember who the coach was at UTEP at the time, but he said, play defense. Because he couldn't even talk. But his last words, he got, I think Steve Haskins to call UTEP, and he got the head coach. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. I'm stuck on that price, dude. It wasn't him. And he said, play defense. But it was, and if I can go back a little bit, that game was September 6th. And since June, he would call me, he goes, hey, bud, where are you at? I said, I'm at the shop. He goes, can you come over? I said, sure. So I'd come over, and he'd be in his bed just laying there. And he goes, hey, I'm going to order some Rudy's barbecue. And I said, for what? He goes, we're going to watch the game here. If you don't mind, we'll watch it here instead of the den. I said, what game? The Longhorns and UTEP. I said, Coach, we're in June. No, it's September 6th. I have a feeling, I really do, that he waited for that game.
Right. It was a football game that came.
It was the football game.
Yeah, I was talking about basketball. Yeah.
No, I know.
That's right.
This was a football
huge
game.
Event. Yeah, huge event.
Huge. And the last people that saw him, I was in there with Coach Floyd at his bedside the day of the game, and he called me over because that damn reception on TV was horrible. Of all Godzilla days, the reception is horrible. So I went and I said, no, you got to turn it on. So I turned it on and got it at the foot of his bed. He's like, oh, thank you, bud. And then Coach Floyd and I were standing next to him, and then he goes, all right, you guys get the hell out of here before you miss this freaking game. And I was like, Coach, he does like us. He threw us out. He cussed at us. And then we're about to walk out the door. We're about to walk out the door. And he says, hey, Beto. And I said, yeah, Coach. And he goes, I'm sorry, man. He said, adios. And I said, oh, no, Coach, I'll see you tomorrow. He goes, Beto, adios. And those were the last words he ever told me. And the next day when I went, he had just passed by 10 minutes. And I just talked to Dan. He said, how's the old man doing? And that's when I told Dan, he hasn't called me today. That's very odd.
Yeah.
So I started walking. Dan, I live 5 minutes from him. So I started walking to his house. And Jim Paul was calling me on the phone, just telling me that he passed. And I walked in right through the kitchen. You know how we used to come into the kitchen. And he looked at me like, because he was Beto, hate to tell you this, but, and I walked in, he's like, oh. And I went straight, and then they didn't let me, the coroner and all them, they were taking stuff, writing stuff down. And they said, you can't go in there. You can't go in there. And I said, I can go in there. And Mrs. Haskins said, yes, he can. And I just walked in there, and he was just laying there. He had a smile on his face. So I just gave him a kiss, man, on his forehead. And then I left, but the last word he told me, and he meant it, now looking back, was adios. He knew he wasn't going to see me again.
It was a rough shape down the end. That's a beautiful story, Beto. That's a beautiful story.
It is.
Thank you, Dan.
I don't doubt any of that. You know, he was such an El Paso supporter, fan, and promoter, and a UTEP through and through. I think it took a lot of pride in something like the Longhorns are coming to play in the Sun Bowl. And so I could see him pointing to that and being like, I'm going to make it to then. I'm going to see this. And then
Dan, I swear, I personally believe he was waiting. I know he was waiting because he was weak. He was so weak at the end. And all he cared about, he'd been calling me June, July, August, put the game on. Come on, bud, put the game on. Sit down. I ordered some stuff. Coach. And then he'd be he'd be like, oh. And then the day of the game, I thought he'd be in, but he was hanging tough. He was hanging tough. But I know he waited for that game. I know he did. And he really believed UTEP could pull it off. And his last words to the UTEP coach was, play defense. He could barely talk. Play defense. That sums it up. No?
Well, that team had like Colt McCoy and all. They were rolling back then, man. They need to play these more recent Longhorn teams. Had a chance.
Yeah, they had Colt McCoy and we had Johnny Hatfield, you know?
Yeah.
And we still almost won. I don't know if his spirit was there, but I remember I was sitting in the skybox because I'd sit in the skybox. He'd give me his tickets. And honestly, I didn't really want to sit in there. I felt out of place in there. I didn't feel the atmosphere of a live game. It felt more like you were at a opera or something. I don't know.
Yeah, especially that great stadium, man.
Yeah. So he told me, were you watching, you know, when I go to the skybox before, I used to take Mr. Ramsey with me. And he told me, well, you sitting up there? Did you have some drinks? Did you have food? And I said, well, Mr. Ramsey stayed up there. I went down to the concourse. I wanted to feel the game. What? And he goes, I don't blame you, bud. I don't blame you. He knew exactly. He knew he wanted the rush of the game on the field. He knew how it was. It was amazing. Hey, Dan, you know what's the irony was that I grew up on Cheyenne and Edgemere. And remember in the old days when kids actually played football on the street? Yeah. All the guys in the neighborhood, now you look down the street, looks like a ghost town. But in those days, we'd all be playing in the street, and the Maverick was the touchdown, and then that Camaro was the other touchdown, and you just play in the street. And we had our team at Cheyenne, we played Navajo, etc. We'd be playing the street. And I just see the guys like, oh, man, this guy would pull up in a pickup truck, and he blocked the end zone. It was Don Haskins. He used to come across the street to Carol Jackson's house. Mr. Jackson, I just knew him by Mr. Jackson. I didn't call him Carol. He was a professor at UTEP, and these guys would go fishing. I mean, they would take off fishing in that K5 Blazer that Mr. Jackson had, who I used to wash it for 25 cents. And Coach said, how much did Carol pay you for the wash? I said, 25 cents. He goes, he's a cheap bastard, always has been. But they go fishing together. And I told Coach, you used to block our end zone. And he says, Beto, you were one of those kids on the street? And I said, I'm the one that said, Coach, you're blocking the end zone. And remember that amazing memory he had?
Oh, yeah.
He said, I remember it.
He probably did remember that exact conversation. That guy remembered everything that he wanted to.
Well, when he brought me,
where was that neighborhood? By the airport?
By
like not far from the airport?
Between Bassett Center and Cielo Vista, where you used to stay. Remember, because I even told you, hey, Dan, I grew up right here on Edgemere, right here.
Yeah.
So.
But it's close to the airport, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
We used to see the air shows for my mom group for free. And the thing was, he came to bring my brother a basketball for his birthday. I said, would you do me a favor? We're all huge fans of the man. Would you bring my brother a ball? Could you sign it? He said, of course. So he goes, where do you live? And I said, okay, get off on Geronimo, and we go up Edgemere. And he goes, hey, when we pull up to my mom's house, he goes, Carol Jackson used to live here. That's when I told him the story about, I said, Coach, we used to play in the streets. And I told you once, can you move the truck? You're in the end zone. And he says, Beto, that was you? And I said, yeah. And he goes, I remember. And he wasn't just making that up, Dan. He remembers everything.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
So we had this connection kind of back. And it was kind of, and I was telling Doug this story that it was kind of creepy because I didn't have to say anything. He knew what I was thinking and vice versa. And he didn't have to say anything because I knew what he was thinking when he was going to say. We just had this uncanny, it was kind of creepy. We looked at each other and say, chase clouds, let's go. 8 hours later, we're coming home. My wife's, where have you guys been? Oh, we went up the street to get a hamburger. 8 hours ago? Yes, 8 hours ago.
Hell of a hamburger.
Well, Dan, remember we used to go to Columbus to get enchiladas? Montadas.
Columbus and then Del City, those are the funny ones. And just drive. They did have some hell of good food out there in Columbus.
And then we crossed the border to Palomas.
Get a little meal over there too. I don't know. We'd just drive around. Sometimes we'd be driving on these dirt roads, and then the border patrol would come up.
You're tripping sensors.
Yeah. Oh, wait, Coach. You guys do it.
Hey, Dan, when we were up at the cattle pens in Santa Teresa, we were doing the coyotes, and then he got mad because they were prodding the cows when they're bringing them down from the truck. Oh, no. They're putting them on the truck. So the guy kept with electric prod. Oh, I pissed him off. He was pissed. He was like, damn it. I said, you eat steak a lot? Jesus, I never thought about that, Beto. And then he was like, damn it. But he got mad at that guy because he was prodding him. And then he goes, let's go get a drink, bud. And then he goes, I know a great place just south of the border. So we go. We're about to cross, and that was Santa Teresa where we crossed. And right before we're at there's two cars in front of us, and it's a green light and a red light. And green says you can go, red, you stop. So there's a station wagon and a van, and green, the first guy goes. No, the first two guys, no, it was a red and then a green. And then we're about to cross, and he goes, hey, bud, did you get that shotgun and the shells out from under the seat? And I said, what? He goes, did you get the shotgun and the shells out? And right when he said that, a shell rolled through my boot. And I look down, there's a 12-gauge shell, and I'm looking down, and I look up, and there's a Mexican guy at the customs. And I was like, please, ding, green light. We get to right behind us, Dan. As soon as we pull forward, ding, 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 the next person stopped.
Oh, wow.
But when we get to the bar, it was middle of nowhere. But the funny thing was, I always wondered where. Remember on the
in Palomas?
No, this was in actually Juarez, but on the west side of Juarez, where underneath it says "La Biblia es la verdad," that mountain that's written on.
Yeah.
I finally got there. I mean, I was looking at it right there. I said, "Oh, I always wondered where this was." And we go to this bar, and we sit down. The guy goes, he had polio, and his name was Polo, and he was cracking ice with an ice pick. And Coach goes, "Jesus, when is this guy coming over? Call him." So I call him, and he finally comes over. He goes, 2 Carta Blancas, tequila. The guy brings the beers, he puts them down, he puts the bottle of tequila down, and he walks away back to his chippy nice. And Coach goes, "Jesus, isn't that the greatest?" Because they put the bottle down and walk away, just like he's John Wayne, you know, how he loved his Westerns. He said, "You know, the only thing I don't like about the States is they don't leave the bottle and walk away." So what he thought was the most amazing thing was that the guy left the bottle, 2 glasses, and just leaves. So 6 hours later, it's good. Coach says, "Let's get out of here." So I call him over, and I said, "Polo, how much do we owe you?" And then there's a ton of bottles over here, and a bottle gone, and then we started on the second bottle of tequila. And then the guy goes, $20. I go, "Coach." Hey, Coach goes, "I know what he said. Tell that dumb ass we've been here 6 hours." So he throws him $100 bill. And then he goes, "I don't have change." And Coach goes, "That's for him." And the guy goes, "Oh, oh, oh." He comes around the bar and hugs Coach. He probably made a month's worth of wages in 6 hours. But
100%.
anybody else would have given them the 10 or the 20 and just walked away. Coach says, "Tell them we've been here 6 hours. We drank 2 bottles and look at all the beers on the side."
Well, that was this thing too. Even just the breakfast, like you go to Columbus, New Mexico. I don't know how many people listen to this have been there, but it's not much of a town. Small town on the border. They're not getting a whole lot of tourists or, you know, we go in a little breakfast place, simple local breakfast place, and we leave big tips. And Nut, New Mexico. Remember that old bar in Nut, New Mexico? There's two buildings in Nut, New Mexico. There's 3. There's the post office, there's the bar, and then there's the trailer that the bar owner lived in. That was Nut, New Mexico. I don't know what's in Nut now, but that was it. Nut, New Mexico. Go up to the Gila. Drive around up there is beautiful. Nut, New Mexico. I'm like, this is the damnedest town I ever seen.
You know the irony about Columbus, New Mexico, Dan, that's where Pancho Villa crossed over.
Oh, yeah.
So it had a lot of history. But that lady, Dan, when we used to eat at Maria's, remember that lady that loved them and made all these amazing breakfasts and lunches for us? I'll never forget this. When they had the wake at the Don Haskins Center, there was just people, thousands coming in and out. I was just sitting in the tunnel where we used to sit, but on the outside, on the wall, just sitting there with my brother, Omar. And I was, at that time, it was the worst day of my life. I was grief-stricken. It was a horrible day. And my brother keeps tapping me like this, and he goes, "Look." And I look up, and I see this lady bawling. It was the lady from the restaurant, Maria.
Oh, yeah, I remember you told me
that. He drove all the way, that poor lady, and we looked at her Jeep, and we're like, she won't even make it back, will she? I mean, she drove all the way here to pay her respects to Coach. And that's the kind of guy that Coach was, and those are the kind of people that nobody knows about. But I never forgot the look on her face. She was heartbroken, and she was telling me, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Please tell the family." And my brother goes, "That lady drove in that all the way over here to pay her respects."
Yeah.
That's just one of the thousands of stories that people don't know. But in that little restaurant, remember that? She had Josh Lucas. She had Billy Knight, Bobby Knight. She had, I don't know if it was Salma. but she had the poster signed.
Oh, all these basketball coaches would come through. Yeah. I mean, you could not get a more nondescript spot in America than this place. But it was good. Boy, could she cook.
And she had Dan's picture.
But you give a woman like that 100, 200, and he'd make those all the celebs he bring in there. You tip, and he better be good. You know, a couple $100 in a town like that is just an enormous, morning, and they're not expecting it.
Doug, Dan he plays it down, but I always thought that Coach Haskins was Jagger, and Dan was Keith Richards, man. Because Dan is a rock star here, and you know
Jesus.
I don't know if that analogy quite works.
It works great. It was fantastic because Dan always goes, no, they don't. Well, the other day, Doug had Kaplowitz on the show, and he says, hey, next week we have Wetzel. Well, the dude lit up. Oh, is he coming in town? Is he coming in live? Dan,
Cap's good people
are here, man.
Yeah, well, maybe back in the day. Cap's good people. It was fun. I love El Paso. Incredible city. Nothing else like it in America.
Your adoptive son.
Yeah. Proud of it.
That's good.
And I told Doug about Exit 69 Detroit, man.
I asked him about it.
Did you?
He did, yeah. Doug asked me about it.
Because we're going to make some shirts, Dan and I. We're going to make some money off it. You kind of have to. You kind of have to. I mean, where else do you see Exit 69, Big Beaver Road? I pulled off and took pictures of that. I'm making some signs, Dan.
That's it. It's going to be a big money. It's going to the 66 line.
One time, Dan called Coach and I, and he's with the girls. Dan has two beautiful daughters, and he tells us, we're in the middle of the desert, Coach and I, just in the middle of the desert doing nothing. And Dan called us, and we said, Coach says, what are you doing? He goes, I'm buying sand.
Yeah, filling up the sandbox. Those two went wild. And you buy sand?
And me and Coach like this, like I tell you, buying sand. And then Coach says, you know what we got to do, Beto? We'll get one of those big trucks with a dumpster on it. They go, a dump truck? No, a dumpster. It's called a dump truck. Whatever. We're going to run it up there and sell it to these guys in Detroit. Buying
Make
sand.
a lot of money. Yeah, sand.
Those are the kind of things that, I mean, whenever Dan would come on, we'd just start that little circle, the three amigos. It was just hilarious. It wouldn't stop. It's like a cycle. It just starts. You pick up where you left off, right? Then it's like
exactly. Old friends.
Forever, man. And Dan signed a Coors Light bottle that I have in my sports collection, and Dan goes, "You got to be kidding me! It's next to the bear."
Yeah.
A Coors Light bottle.
I hope I drank it. I'm pretty sure I did. Pretty good chance I did.
Well, you know another story that Doug told me that I wasn't aware of. Apparently, he was there that night when we were across the border, and Nolan kept calling us angry, saying, "Where are we?" Because we're not at his fundraiser.
Running a little late.
We're supposed to be at a fundraiser, Coach. Oh, is that today? So Doug was there when we pulled into the Alamo building, and Tarkanian was sitting at our table. Remember?
Oh yeah.
And Doug wasn't aware that you also wrote Tarkanian's autobiography.
Yeah, Running Rebel. Yeah.
Running Rebel.
Knew Tark well. Great man, great guy. Funny guy. Oh yeah. Yeah, we're a little late. We're late. I was like, I wasn't taking the blame for that. I don't need Nolan mad at me. I'll tell you that right now. As one man, I don't need mad at me.
No. And Doug was there at that whole fun.
Yes, I remember seeing Doug there.
And I got into it with Tarkanian at the table, and then we carried it back into the men's room. And then I got back, and Coach gave me a lashing he's like, Beto, what's going on? All I told Tarkanian was that he is not a third of the coach was, and coach got mad at that, and so did Tarkadian, and we kind of went into this whole story, but it ended up okay. He was cool.
All's well that ends well.
That's right.
Let's cut this one. Let's do it right there.
All right.
You guys all good?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great time.
Thanks for coming on.
Oh man, I'll talk to you guys anytime.
And Beto, try to think of a few things to say for next time.
Okay. Hey, Dan, you look wonderful. It's great seeing you. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, love you guys.
The hat is great. You look good.
I was like, I'm getting this hat out, baby. I wear it sometimes, but then the listens are the color. People are like, what?
And that's my favorite color is orange. So I used to wear everything orange.
Yeah, Texas Western.
Absolutely.
I said I'm going to put my hat on if I'm going to do this. Sorry about earlier. Dave's been crazy.
No, we understand. And we appreciate all that. It was wonderful.
Anytime. I can't wait to hear it.
Yoli and Diego send their love.
All right. Same
Tell
here.
the girls hello.
I will.
Adios.
Take care, my brother.
Adios. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Adios.